Part 18. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 171. Chapter 171. The ancestors of the Hua family appear. The sun sets at U hour, and the afterglow of the setting sun dyes half of the sky red. After an hour of auction, although the Hua family still had 5 shops left to be auctioned, all the previous shops were bought by Do Kaochan and the merchants behind him for a few cents in rent. It can be said that they took advantage of them. Other merchants are very excited because of this, just waiting for them to be able to profit from it. Chen Yi held the few remaining leasehold deeds of the Hua family, his palms sweating. He didn't know what Miss Kinjao wanted to do this time, but if this continued, the old lady's dowry and all the expectations of the Hua family would really be in vain. Do Kaochan was afraid that the Hua family would change his mind, so he raised his voice before other shops could continue the auction. I hope the Hua family can abide by the agreement and first hand over the leased land deed to us for signature. Looking at the greedy faces of Do Kaochan and the merchants behind him, Peng Jing frowned and said, "The Hua family has no obligation to hang around you. If you want to lease the land, you have to wait for all the shops to be signed and pledged together. Ignorant young man, hurry up and leave. We are all famous merchants in the main city, and every moment is extremely precious. If our time is wasted, I'm afraid we won't be able to afford it even if we take out all your Hua's shops. The rent for the Hua family's shop is only a few cents. If we want to be able to afford our time, I'm afraid there will be thousands, if not tens of thousands. Juniors are juniors, and they don't understand any etiquette and rules. However, the Hua family is headed by a fool who can rent out the shop at a loss, and even if there are such unreasonable servants, they will be cleaned up." The merchants sneered arrogantly, wishing they could completely grind the dignity of the Hua family into dust. Do Kaochan even sneered again and again, "If the Hua family is sensible, they should hand over the lease title immediately. If the government goes to the Yamen to sue the Hua family for breach of integrity, the Hua family will be imprisoned." Tianyu rushed over angrily, and the cool breeze around him hit Do Kaochan and the merchants in the face. "A group of shameless people not only took advantage of our Hua family, but now they are so shameless and gloating about our misfortune. You guys, aren't you afraid of retribution for bullying us orphans and widowed mothers?" Fourth sister. Mu Yangan swallowed and grabbed Tianyu's hand, trying to stop her, but her eyes were full of soreness. Tianyu shook off Mu Yan's hand and spoke even more angrily, "My Hua family has been fighting on the battlefield for hundreds of years to defend Ziliang for the prosperity of the country and the well-being of the people. If the ancestors of my Hua family are given, we know that the people they saved with their lives are so ungrateful and repay kindness with hatred. How can we find peace even under the 9 springs?" Among the people watching the excitement around, there were many white-haired and elderly people. When I thought of the ancestors of the Hua family who had died in order to be loyal to the country, I immediately burst into tears. Do Kaochan only counted the benefits he was about to gain, and pressed nonchalantly, "The Hua family has collapsed, so why bother talking about the Hua family anymore? Even if the Hua family is still there, I can't condone you low-class people who lack family education. Go back on your word again. God's decree, the dusk smoke retreats. The motto of my Hua family is that what you say must be done, and what you do must be resolute. Promises must not be made lightly, and promises must be done. Now these people in the main city are all the men of my Hua family from generation to generation. Defended with blood, how do you look like quarreling with him outside the flower shop?" Fan Kinjao, who had been sitting aside, stood up from his desk, and the teacup in front of him was vibrating and buzzing. Tianyu muttered unwillingly, "Third sister, they are not worthy of my Hua family man's life to protect them." Fan Kinjao's voice remained unchanged and his words were clear, "As long as they are the people of Ziliang, they are worthy of the Hua family's life to protect them. How can the cherishment and defense of the people by the ancestors of the Hua family be put aside by our juniors, Peck? Hurry up and get out of here." Tianyu's eyes were red and he finally lowered his head in grievance. Fan Qinjiao signaled Chen Yi and Peng Jing to give up a road in front of the shop, looked at Dou Caochen and the merchants and said, "Anyone who rents or comes to my Huajia shop to seek employment must stand at the front of the shop. I bow 3 times to the Huajia shop at the door to show my respect for the ancestors of my Huajia family, and also ask some of you to follow the centuries-old rules of my Huajia family." When Dou Caochen thought of bending over for the Hua family, a strong feeling of disgust filled his heart. At this time, Fan Qinjiao asked Chen Yi and Peng Jing to take out the leasehold title. Looking at the leasehold title that was about to be received, Dou Caochen nodded to the merchants behind him. "It's just a matter of bending down a few times, and it won't kill anyone, so getting the land deed is the most important thing." When several merchants saw this, they stood in front of the shops they had photographed, together with the doors of the 2 previous merchants who had auctioned Huajia shops at high prices. Dou Caochen took the first step forward and said to the Huajia shop, "Today I, Dou Caochen, take a photo of the Huajia shop in the clear and righteous way. I will take good care of the Huajia shop in the future to comfort the ancestors of the Huajia family, the spirit in heaven that protects Ziliang." Who doesn't know how to speak high-sounding words? It's just a bunch of dead bones that have long since rotted in the ground, how can it be heard? Dou Caochen thought nonchalantly as he slowly bent down towards Hua's shop in front of all the people and other merchants. 1 2 3. After 3 bows, Dou Caochen straightened up, but heard kaka, a crisp sound. "I saw that the plaque that was originally hanging upright on the flower shop was broken into 2 halves. The plaque is broken. How can a perfectly good plaque be broken into pieces? This is the appearance of the ancestors of the Hua family in heaven, and they are not allowed to be worshipped by him." The people's exclamations suddenly erupted, and the ensuing discussion immediately filled the entire West Street. Dou Caochen looked at the plaque that was broken into 2 pieces in front of him, almost flashing his waist. The people's comments became more and more intense. When Dou Caochen saw the plaque in front of his toes glowing blood red under the setting sun, he was so frightened that he immediately took a few steps back. The purpose of his coming here this time is to deceive the Hua family's shop, and even more to take advantage of the Hua family. Now that the good plaque is broken like this, how can he not be afraid because he has a guilty conscience? When the merchants who were still standing in front of other shops saw this, their faces turned very pale. The sky is clear and the sun is shining brightly. Is it really haunted? Chen Yi, whose eyes were also widened, subconsciously looked at Fan Qinjiao not far away. The Hua family is indeed a loyal family, but if the ancestors of the Hua family are really alive in heaven, why not seek justice for the Hua family when they were wronged, but today they smashed their own plaque? Could it be Miss Qinjiao? Chen Yi was thinking about it when he saw the second young lady walking quietly to Miss Qinjiao. Xiao Yan took advantage of everyone's attention being on the plaque and came over holding a small porcelain vase. At this moment, what she is holding in her hand is the black gold powder uniquely made by the Hua family. This medicinal powder has a very light smell but is extremely corrosive. It is generally used to corrode rotten meat and dead bones to ensure the regeneration of new meat. Just looking at the plaque broken in half, she couldn't laugh. Instead, she whispered guiltily, "It's finally broken, but, just." Fan Qinjiao walked forward with his eyes, only speaking without moving his lips, "What happened?" Smiley gritted his teeth and said again, "I accidentally poured too much just now. I poured a whole bottle of black gold powder on that plaque. The other plagues are just useless." Fan Qinjiao's eyes flashed, and his mind suddenly turned around 1,000 times. Of course. At this time, other merchants who do not believe in evil have already bowed down to Huajia shop. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 172. Chapter 172, Practice benevolence and practice righteousness without giving in to others. The businessmen standing here today have no regard for propriety, justice, and shame for the sake of so-called interests. How could it be pushed back by a broken plaque now? At the root of the imperial city and at the feet of the emperor, they didn't believe that there were really any ghosts at work. Several merchants looked at each other and nodded tacitly. They just bowed to the flower shop together to see if the ancestors of the flower shop were really that effective. Seeing this, Xiao Yan was so frightened that she trembled. What should I do with third sister? It's all my fault, my hands are shaking. The smart and lively smile naturally knows what it means if the other plagues are not broken. Fan Qinjiao tensed her whole body, and her habitual meticulousness and calmness kept her clear-headed at all times. What Tianyu and Mu Yan did just now have aroused the memory of the Hua family in the hearts of the people. If all the plagues owned by the Hua family were really divided into two, the public opinion of the people alone would crush these profiteers to death. This move is a desperate move, and it is also a step-by-step move. If one plaque is not broken, all the previous efforts will be in vain. Thousands of thoughts flashed through Fan Qinjiao's dark eyes in an instant. Suddenly, there was a biting chill in the eyes that had always been calm. These shops were part of my grandmother's dowry, and the money was my brother's life-saving talisman. No matter what, she would not take advantage of these shameless people. Looks like we can only fight with our last breath at the moment. Swish, 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 swish. Something comes in vain through the wind. The speed is so fast that even a sensitive person like Fan Qinjiao can only catch the sound but not the object. At the same time, the merchants standing in front of the flower shop had already bent down. However, the moment they straightened up at the same time, the familiar click, the sound sounded again. Different from just now, the sound this time is crisper and unusually dense. Look over here. Then, it's the same over there. Amid the exclamations of the people, the plagues on the Huajia shop collapsed one by one into cracks. Immediately afterwards, they fell to the ground one after another like rain. Why are the two plagues here the best? Someone in the crowd pointed to the plagues of the two shops in front of Huajia. Sure enough, the two plagues of the flower shop that were photographed earlier are still intact and hanging high on the top of the door. Under such a comparison, the few merchants who had not believed in evil just now were so shocked that they stepped back one after another, and some of the timid ones already collapsed on the ground. Tianyu and Weian remembered what their third sister had said before, and immediately knelt on the ground and cried, I just said that the ancestors of our Hua family are still here, and they definitely did not allow others to bully our Hua family. Daughter, ancestors, we know that you are aggrieved for us, but the world is evil, and some people are bullying me because I have no male in the Hua family. It's true that the ancestors of the Hua family are back. I think about how much the Hua family has contributed to the people of Ziliang. How could such a shameless person be so cruel as to bully the daughters of the Hua family? Ancestors of the Hua family, don't worry, we the people of Ziliang still remember everything you have done. As long as we are here, no one can defraud the Hua family. The people's excited voices were loud, soaring into the sky, deafening. Seeing that the common people were walking towards their direction, the other merchants were even more frightened and pointed straight at Dokao City. It's him who made the plan this time to come to the Hua family to take advantage, and he didn't want the Hua family to enter the main city merchant alliance. It was all his fault. We were just motivated by temporary interests and did the wrong thing. The merchants were panicked and even more afraid. Originally, the relationship between them was linked to interests, but now they are betrayed as soon as they say it. Furthermore, there are people who are filled with indignation and anger in the front, and the ancestors of the Hua family are in the dark wind in the back. I wonder who can not panic or be afraid. Do Kaochen's face was pale. Seeing the people looking at him angrily, he was flustered and sweating profusely. In desperation, he had to turn around and run away. How can the people let him go when they have been furious for a long time? Horses immediately followed closely. When the other merchants saw this, they all squeezed out of the crowd with their tails between their legs. Unaware of this, Mu Yan and Tian Yu hid the smiles in their eyes, only thinking that the smiles meant they had succeeded. But at this moment, the smile's expression was not much better than that of those merchants, and the words she muttered to Fan Kinjao were all in a vibrato. Third sister, is it really the ancestors of our family, appeared? If everything in the world could be miraculous, how could there be so many people who died in vain? Fan Kinjao looked at the broken plaque on the ground again, and his eyes were suddenly attracted by an inconspicuous stone. When she looked at the other plagues, she could see a stone the size of a fingernail surrounding them. In an instant, Fan Kinjao raised his head and looked around. In the alley across the street, an inconspicuous carriage was parked quietly. Bailey Fengming, who was sitting in the carriage at the moment, reached out and lifted a corner of the carriage curtain. Fan Kinjao's heart skipped a beat when their eyes met. She asked Fan Zhao to send a message to that person, knowing that he would definitely send someone to deal with the matter. It's just that that person was suspicious by nature, and the one he was most wary of and afraid of was the prince. He was afraid that the prince would take away the chair under him before he died. How could he let the person he was guarding handle such a private matter now? I'm just afraid. It was Bailey Fengming who did something else. Making a plan under that person's nose is simply pulling out a tooth from a tiger's mouth. As for why Bailey Fengming was willing to take such risks, she knew it clearly without thinking too much. Just like this, Fan Kinjao forced himself to look away. At this time, Dokao City and the merchants who had sneaked away were surrounded by the people. Dokao Chen, whose pants almost ran away, was extremely embarrassed. He looked at Fan Kinjao but refused to give up. If I had known that your Huajia shop was haunted, I wouldn't have paid even a penny. You should be lucky. It was us who spent our money to take pictures of your Hua family's shop that no one dares to ask for. Seeing Dokao Chen's arrogant face, Fan Kinjao's eyebrows jumped sharply, and there was a chill in his eyes. My ancestors of the Hua family all sacrificed their lives to defend the country and were killed on the battlefield by the people. How can it be done now? Let you spit out the slander of a ghost. No matter what you say, I have already taken the photo of that shop. If you don't give me the land deed, I will report it to the government now, Dokao Chen said, secretly winking at the other merchants. Just before the other merchants could react, a burst of high fives was heard from behind the crowd. I've always heard that Miss Hua's family is very kind and righteous, but now I see her reputation is truly well deserved. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 173. Chapter 173. The good show is taking the initiative. The people were stunned when they heard this voice. When everyone looked back, their expressions immediately changed. I saw a few young men in their 14th and 15th years walking slowly, each wearing a big cloak and a golden crown on his head. These people all have prominent family backgrounds, and they are even more famous as playboys in the main city. The common people knew that they could not afford to offend this group of wealthy children, so they immediately retreated and made way for themselves. Fan Kinjao frowned slightly when he looked at them, his eyes fixed on the man with the head. This person was Ji Yuz, the youngest son of the current governor of Kawago, and Ji Hongliao's nephew. When he stood in front of Fan Kinjao, he was the first to say, "The big tree collapsed and the birds and beasts scattered, but I never thought that Miss Huajia would still uphold thee in the spirit of the Hua family. It is said that there is no waste in the Hua family, and now it turns out to be true." The dudes standing behind were also very excited when they looked at Fan Kinjao. A daughter's family has a spirit that no man has. If everyone in the main city is like this, Ziliang will not worry about prosperity. Facing Ji Yuz's praise, Fan Kinjao said calmly, I'm just telling the truth. This Jiyo seems to be a playboy, but in fact he has a hidden secret. In his last life, he became the leader of Bailey Rong's military divisions. This person is deep-minded and smooth in dealing with things. She is the culprit who made her plan to frame Zhongliang in the court. Almost at the same time as he looked at Jiyo's, Fan Kinjao decided in her heart that if this person still took refuge in Bailey Rong's in this life, then she would not let him have a happy ending. It's not about hatred, it's just about ability. Winner takes all, loser for cow. Jiyo's noticed Fan Kinjao's indifference, but he didn't care. He took half a step back and turned to look at Huajia's shop and said, I heard that Huajia's auction shop is in full swing. We just happen to have nothing to do. You might as well count us in. Other dandies also rushed to speak, this is the best thing. I happen to have nothing to do recently. If I can rent Hua's shop, I can make a living. Other merchants who were still waiting for the auction were murmuring in their hearts. These young men who were born with silver spoons in their mouths will never starve to death even if they idle around all their lives. Now they are here to compete with them for shops. But they only dare to think about this in their hearts. These are the most famous dandies in the main city. They would only dare to confront them unless they are tired of living. Even Do Kochin, who just threatened to ask the Hua family to hand over the leasehold title as soon as possible, did not dare to refute and said, this is the best. The young masters can be a witness to everyone and save the Hua family. They are speculative and do something to harm merchants and deceive the people. Jiyos looked at Do Kochin and smiled meaningfully, don't worry, Mr. Do, no one dares to rub sand in our eyes. Do Kochin had naturally heard of young Master Ji, but he didn't expect that young Master Ji also knew him. At once his face was full of glory, and he straightened his back and got close to Jiyos. I didn't expect to be so lucky to meet Mr. Ji today. If Mr. Ji doesn't dislike me for a while, I will be your host. Jiyos rubbed the ring on his finger and nodded playfully, that's very good. Other dandies even personally helped Do Kochin up, promising, don't worry, Mr. Do, no one will dare to be presumptuous if we are around. Do Kochin. Suddenly, I feel that happiness comes so suddenly. Because they had the support of the dandies in the main city, even the merchants who came with Do Kao City broke free from the oppression of the people one by one, shook their clothes and stood up. The common people looked at their proud and elated expressions, and they were itching their teeth with hatred, but there was nothing they could do. Do Kochin changed his panic and walked up to Fan Kinjao, raised his chin and said, we have paid our respects to the shop, and we also ask Miss Huajia why to continue the auction of the shop below. If these young masters are left waiting in a hurry, I'm afraid they won't be able to afford the compensation even if they sell all the shops in the Hua family. After all, these shops in the Hua family only cost a few cents. I heard that the daughters of the Hua family are all waiting to be married, so it would be nice if they agreed to marry each other. While the merchants were trying to please the dandies in the main city, they also looked at Fan Kinjao and other daughters of the Hua family with disdain, as if they were looking at each piece of merchandise. Tianyu was so angry that he wanted to rush over and argue. How could I, the daughter of the Hua family, allow you to be so blasphemous? Fan Kinjao, however, tightened his grip on Tianyu's wrist and calmly turned back to Chen Yudao, who was trying to kill someone. Chen Guanjia, let's continue. Third sister. Third sister. The faces of the daughters of the Hua family showed expressions of surprise. Do Kukan showed off his power even more, and ordered Chen Yi and Peng Jing, are you deaf? You didn't hear your boss speak, so hurry up and start. I'm afraid Fan Kinjao, a little bitch, has given up on his own initiative. But it's normal to think about it. These dandies in the main city even have to give in to the current princes. Fan Kinjao is just a little girl who rushed to the shelves and took over the Hua family. It's okay to be clever. Yes, in terms of insight and courage, it is far from enough. Chen Yi and Peng Jing waited for a long time, but when they saw that their young ladies had no intention of changing their words, they reluctantly walked to the front of the shop at the back and continued to organize the auction. Fan Kinjao stood aside with several young daughters from the Hua family. Seeing the greedy eyes of those merchants who are racking their brains to take meat from the Hua family, seeing the dudes who follow the main city, openly calculating the dignity of the Hua family, squeezing the interests of the Hua family, just to please the master. Do Cao Cheng, the dandy in the city, and the little daughters of the Hua family just felt anger rising in their chests. They all tensed up, gritted their teeth, and their eyes were red. In my heart, I hate their insignificance at this moment and my own powerlessness. Fan Kinjao saw the dissatisfaction of the little daughters of the Hua family in his eyes, and his long eyelashes drooped slightly. There are indeed many kinds of growth, but no matter which kind, there is no incentive to move forward faster and more effectively. From this point of view, these shops owned by my grandmother are so worth it. As for those who want to take advantage of Huajia, Fan Kinjao's thoughts changed and he looked at the carriage parked quietly in the alley again. Since that man sent Bailey Fengming here, he definitely would not give up Hua's shop to talent. These dudes in the main city have always been idle, how could they take pictures of the flower shop for no reason? Moreover, Jiyuz was clearly showing his favor to her secretly just now, and then took the initiative to extend an olive branch to Do Caochen. Therefore, when Do Caochen and the merchants climbed up with poles, they didn't know that they were already heading towards the fire pit. It jumped inside. Bailey Fengming's scheming was so deep that she didn't even dare to challenge him. How could those businessmen who were full of copper odor and only thought about harming others and benefiting themselves, how could they outplay him? So for now, she just needs to wait quietly. Waiting for a good show to take the initiative. At this moment, the hand that lifted the car curtain was raised again. Fan Kinjao immediately withdrew his gaze. When Xiaoxian, who was standing by the carriage, saw this, he couldn't help but whispered, "Your Highness, do you need me to explain it to Miss Kinjao in person? His Royal Highness has worked very hard for Miss Kinjao this time. What will happen if Miss Kinjao misunderstands His Highness again?" Bailey Fengming, who was sitting in the carriage, smiled lightly and said, "No need, Ayao already knows everything." Xiaoxian. Zhizi, got it? When did it happen? End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 174. Chapter 174, Every step is bumpy, and there are pitfalls everywhere. The auction at Huajia's shop continues. Unsurprisingly, as Chen Yi raised his hand, none of the eager merchants dared to call out the price. There was an apprehensive silence outside Hua's shop. Seeing this, Do Caochen approached Ji Yuz and whispered flatteringly, "Young Master Ji, please don't shout too loud. We rented the shops in front of us for a few pennies, so now Ji the young master only needs this number, that's enough." As Do Caochen spoke, he pointed out 5 fingers to Ji Yuz. Obviously, it means 5 cents. The merchants standing nearby watched, snickering in their hearts. No matter whether the Hua family is a manifestation of their ancestors or something happened out of thin air, as long as these dandies also bid according to the price, the common people will not dare to make mistakes no matter how bold they are. As for the pictures of those useless little girls in the Hua family, they have to endure the pain. In this way, even if they use this flower shop as a warehouse, it is still earned with blood. "What do you mean, Master Do?" Ji Yu's surprised voice suddenly sounded at the door of Hua's shop. Do Caochen was stunned when he was asked. What he just said was so obvious, how could Mr. Ji not understand it? Ji Yu's face was filled with anger. "You did make an agreement with me in advance this afternoon that you would come and help me take pictures of the Huajia shop. I will give you the money afterwards, but the Huajia shop is obviously you bought it for a penny. Why do you want hundreds of thousands of taels of silver from me?" Do Caochen was not stunned, but Do Caochen was panicked. When will I? That's what you said to us this afternoon. Do you still want to make excuses now? I just said that this person cannot be trusted. Fortunately, we came here in advance to have a look, otherwise, wouldn't we all be deceived by this cunning man? Are you worthy of being in the merchant alliance of the main city? Do Kauchen didn't even wait for him to finish speaking, and the other dudes were talking to each other one by one. Because no one dared to raise the price, the voices of a few dudes were extremely clear and clear. In this way, the people completely understood it. Do Kuken's accusation of cheating on the Hua family is false, but the truth is that he wants to exploit the Hua family. Merchants also understand. What he said was that he stood up for them, but this guy just wanted to profit from it himself. Other merchants couldn't help but notice it. This Do Kauchen said he was wooing them to take advantage of the Hua family, but in fact he just wanted to use them to take pictures of the Hua family shop to please the dandy. Almost instantly, Do Kauchen became the target of public criticism. Facing those pairs of eyes that could penetrate him, Do Kauchen felt a chill in his chest. He is not a fool, and he can now see that the reason why these dandies are here is not for the Hua family's shop. Do Kauchen turned his head and looked at Fan Kinjao, who had been standing aside, and suddenly felt a cold breeze coming from his limbs. It's Fan Kinjao. These dudes are simply here to help Fan Kinjao slander him. But Do Kauchen didn't allow any further explanation. Those merchants rushed to him first. The master of the Do family is really good at calculating. Why is he still telling us at the wine table how to take advantage of the Hua family? In fact, he just wants to take advantage of us. We just thought it was the Hua family's misfortune that was being plotted by you, but we didn't expect that even we would become the targets of your plot. Do Kauchen, you are really insidious. Facing the merchants who were sitting together 2 hours ago and planning how to bite the meat from the Hua family, Do Kauchen, who was completely shaken, almost fainted. Even if he knew now that he was on the wrong track, it would be useless because no one would listen to him. This is really full of pitfalls, one bump at a time. Do Kauchen was really scared now, even his legs standing there were trembling. These are all well-known dandies in the main city. It is extremely difficult to establish relationships with these people. Even though he had been fawning over him for so many years, he still could not say a word to these dandies, but Fan Kinjao. How could Fan Kinjao be worthy of letting these dudes help frame her up? What is Fan Kinjao worth? The dandies in the main city are indeed unwilling to get involved in such boring disputes. But what a coincidence is that they have been getting along very well with the young master recently. Since the young master told him, of course they had to come and take a look. Furthermore, they had already heard about this young lady from the Hua family. Bringing 100 coffins to force the palace, and attacking the court officials at the bottom. How could they not come over to pay their respects to such a woman? Unexpectedly, it was their boring behavior this time that they saw the so-called courage and rigidity. A weak woman can support her family alone after it falls. Even now, she dares to proudly continue her family's beliefs. How can this woman not be admired? Even they are convinced by this righteousness, so who are these merchants? Where are the people in the main city? How can we tolerate such villains bullying my daughter from human? I don't know which dude spoke up, and the passionate voice instantly made the people present completely excited. Even these dandies in the main city believe in the character of the daughter of the Hua family. Why are they still hesitating? For a time, the excited people rushed towards Dokao City. Facing countless fists and flying kicks, Do Kauchen was instantly drowned in the crowd. The little daughters of the Hua family were all shocked. This divine reversal cannot be predicted even by fortune-telling. Fan Kinjao walked up to Cheng Yi at this time. The Hua family's motto goes like this: hold justice in your hands, sacrifice your life to fight for the country's calamity, and regard death as a sudden return. This time Xianbei attacks Huaishang. The emperor is worried every day. We have trouble sleeping and eating. We, the Hua family, originally planned to donate all the money we received from the land lease to the army to relieve the emperor's worries, but now it seems that we are unable to do so. These words shocked everyone present. The Hua family rented a shop to fight against Xianbei and Huaishang in Ziliang. The common people and merchants were all affected by these words, and for a while they were overwhelmed with excitement. The Hua family is like this, but they are still thinking about making plans for the country. It's hard to believe that just now they wanted to take advantage of the Hua family along with that Do Kaochen. Miss Huajia, why, please wait a moment, we are willing to auction the Huajia shop again. Since Do Kaochen is the one doing the trick, everything doesn't count and we are willing to continue the auction. Auction, auction, auction. But in a moment, the door of the Huajia shop boiled up again. Fan Qinjiao turned around and looked at the people shouting loudly, his dark eyes trembling. Suddenly, she bent down in front of all the people and merchants. When everyone saw this, they became even more excited. The auction of Huajia's shop continues, which is dozens of times the rent of other shops. Despite this, the voice of the crowd still continued to raise prices. Soon, more than a dozen of Huajia's shops were rented at high prices. All the merchants who took pictures of Huajia's shops were willing to sign supply contracts with King Nanzai now. The smile was so exciting that her brother's life was saved. Mu Yan looked at Fan Qinjiao, who always looked calm, and whispered, "Third sister, why are you unhappy?" Fan Qinjiao lowered his eyes and said nothing. Everything is expected, so what's the point of being happy? At the moment, it seems that he has won, but the battle that affects the life and death of the flower boy is still to come. 2 days later, the army heading for Huaishang left the city. For her, only then will the war really begin. There was sudden darkness in front of him. Fan Qinjiao looked up and saw Jiyo standing still in front of him. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 175. Chapter 175, adding insult to injury. Seeing this, Xiao Yan took Mu Yan to the shop to help make the deed. The Hua family's motto goes like this: holding justice in hand, carrying moral principles on one's shoulders, sacrificing one's life in national disasters, seeing death as if one has returned home. This time Xianbei attacks Huaishang, the emperor is worried every day, and has trouble sleeping and eating. Our Hua family originally planned to rent this property. All the money obtained from the land deed will be donated to the army, so as to relieve the emperor's worries. I hope that what I say will be spread to the palace soon. As long as it is spread into the palace, it is equivalent to being spread into the ears of the emperor. Jiyos looked at his little daughter in front of him with admiration. Not only did he see the purpose of his coming here, but also knew who he was working for, and he also knew how to arouse people's hearts. As the saying goes, if you want your dreams to come true, you need the right time, place, and people. It was indeed the first time that he saw someone who could change the right time, place, and people with his bare hands. Fan Qinjiao raised his cheeks, his calm expression showed no hint of being exposed. The affairs of the Hua family are complicated, I just told the truth and what I wanted to say. The Hua family has never had the slightest ambition towards Ziliang from the beginning to the end. Since that person was suspicious by nature, she just let the words out directly and let all the people in the main city testify that the Hua family was always loyal to Ziliang. This time, she even sold it to that person. Since that person wanted to be a wise and sage king, then she helped him establish this image in the hearts of the people. At present, the lives of her uncles are still in the hands of that person. She only hopes that the current setback can exchange for that person's conscience towards the Hua family. As well as the uncles are temporarily stable. His Royal Highness, you are so capable that I can get your help. Jiyo smiled faintly, but his eyes were full of frankness. It seems that they are using the emperor's power to suppress Do Kaochen and his party, but in fact, they are using Do Kaochen and his team to show their goodwill to the emperor, so that the emperor can slowly let down his guard against the Hua family. Such a step-by-step approach, killing two birds with one stone, is really impressive. The wolf on the left and the tiger on the right are forced by the situation. Since Ji Yuz is someone who can detect that she is Bailey Fengming, then continuing to spend time with this person is just a waste of time, so it is better to admit it happily. I hope that one day, Mr. Ji will not stand in opposition to Miss Hua Jiawai. Xiao Xian wanted to get in touch with these dandy men, so he just let it go, but he knew in his heart that Xiaoxuan's intention to get closer was the prince's intention. Fan Qinjiao did not expect that Ji Yuz wanted to get closer to Bailey Fengming. After Ji Yuz left, she looked at the carriage in the alley again. In this life, it is still unclear whether Ji Yuz is a wolf or a tiger, but if this person can really stand by Bailey Fengming's side, he will always be 100 times stronger than Bailey Rong's side. Tianyu just came over from Chengyi. She originally wanted to let the third sister guess how much money they made this time, but unexpectedly she saw Ji Yuz standing with the third sister talking. Tianlu. Oh my god. My third sister, has the red Luan star moved? Her third sister treated them well, and she naturally hoped that the third sister could find a good family. Just Tianyu looked at Ji Yuz carefully and felt that something was a little bit off. Just then, Ji Yuz and a group of dandies were walking over. Tianyu was thinking about the future of his third sister, so he took a step forward and blocked Ji Yuz's way. If you want to be the son-in-law of my Hua family, you are still a little bit behind. At least you have to get rid of the dandyism on your body, and stop having fun with the dandies in the main city in the future. In this way, I think you may still have some chances. The dandies in the main city. It's okay to scold them to no avail. Is it necessary to scold them so openly? Ji Yuz was stunned for a moment when he looked at this little girl who was running rampantly in front of him. Tianyu just thought that Ji Yuz was embarrassed, so he stood on tiptoe and patted his shoulder and said, "But you are not bad, as long as you strive for excellence, it is always possible." As soon as he finished speaking, he nodded with an old-fashioned look, then turned around and ran away. Ji Yuz looked at the retreating figure. It took him a while to react, and his eyes were filled with a smile without realizing it. The fourth lady of the Hua family. She is an interesting girl. At the tea house across the West Street, some well-dressed people looked very depressed looking at the scene on the West Street. The waiters in the tea house and the diners around looked at the unkind faces and gasped cautiously. These people are all well-known big business people in the main city. Compared with these people, the self-righteous merchants below are simply not worthy of carrying shoes. It's just that these big business people are no longer as domineering as before, but all of them have old faces with a green light. The annual taxes paid by merchants in the main city are already high, and the taxes levied by a wealthy family like them would cost dozens of times more money to support the Hua soldiers' annual training of weapons and food. The high taxes made them feel distressed, but they did not dare to peck the emperor, so they put all their hatred on the Hua family. If Hua Yaoding didn't train the soldiers so vigorously every year, how could they spend so much money in vain? Think about how prosperous the Hua family once was, but now they are reduced to renting a shop to make a living. They, the big business people, are sure to come and watch the excitement. At the moment, not only am I not watching the excitement, but I am also watching the Hua family renting out shops in full swing. How can this not make them so depressed that they turn blue in the face? I didn't expect that this little girl Fan Qinjiao is really good at making movies. No wonder she can even do things like seduce her parents and Li. It's just good luck. What kind of climate can a yellow-haired girl achieve? No matter how hard you try, the Hua family is done, but I don't know if Hua Yaoding, who is far away in the countryside, would be furious if she knew that her precious granddaughter had even rented out his coffin. Ha 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 ha. The big businessmen in the tea house were sarcastic without hesitation. It seems that this is the only way to smooth their old blue faces. It happened that these words were heard clearly by those dudes walking towards the carriage. The dandies stopped and stared, all angrily gearing up. Some even had a bad temper and immediately wanted to go upstairs to argue. For 100 years, if the Hua family hadn't defended Ziliang to the death, where would it have been for you old immortals to sit here and talk sarcastically, doing things that add insult to injury? Jiyu stretched out his hand to stop everyone. Don't cause trouble. The person standing behind them this time is the prince, and the person standing behind the prince is the emperor. Although the big businessmen above are really hateful, now is not a good time for a head-on conflict. Once this matter really comes to a head and anger's long way, not to mention they will get into a whole lot of trouble, I'm afraid even the Hua family will suffer as well. On the other side, Chen Yi walked up to Fan Qinjiao holding the account book and said cheerfully, Miss Qinjiao, this time we took a total of 1.7 million taels. 1,700,000 taels. Even if the shops in Hua's house are rented on an annual basis, they can earn so much money in 10 years. Fan Qinjiao looked at the number on it with heavy eyes. The 1.7 million taels earned by the Hua family. It was just that he only saved half of his brother's life. Chen Yi was surprised to see that there was no smile on Miss Qinjiao's face. As a result, he saw Fan Qinjiao turn around and walk to the front of the flower shop. In full view of the public, Fan Qinjiao rang the gong used in the auction. Bang! In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on Fan Qinjiao again. The Hua family's ability to win the support of the people in the main city is the greatest honor that the Hua family has gained over the past century. If my grandfather is still in the main city and hears that Xianbei has once again insulted the people of Ziliang, he will be furious and go to fight in person. Although my daughter of the Hua family has no chance to go there, the men from the Hua family rushed to the battlefield together and were broken into pieces, but our Hua family is willing to do our best to provide sufficient support for the soldiers heading to Huaishang. As Fan Qinjiao said, he raised the account book in his hand high. The Hua family is willing to donate the 1.7 million taels of silver sold by all the Hua family's shops to the imperial court. The troops and horses have not moved, but the food and grass have gone first. Our Hua family hopes that the battle in Huaishang will be successful. Our Hua family hopes that the soldiers who went to Huaishang will return in triumph. Fan Qinjiao's words resounded throughout West Street and were loud and clear. All the people and merchants on West Street were suddenly filled with excitement and their throats were clogged. Those were all the dandies who saw one leg stepping onto the carriage, and they were so shocked that they almost fell to the ground on the spot. They were going to return to life with Xiaoxian. Result: what kind of fun is this young lady from the Hua family doing? Jiyos listened carefully to Fan Qinjiao's words and just smiled. It looks like another good show is about to begin. He finished his words and looked meaningfully at the carriage in the alley. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince indeed has a good vision. This young lady from the Hua family is really a rare person. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 176. Chapter 176 Retribution. At this time, the people standing on West Street had already known that the Hua family would donate all their money. But it's one thing for them to know it, and it's another thing to actually see it with their own eyes. Hearing that the men from the Hua family who were far away in the border areas were also going to Huaishang this time, and then looking at Fan Qinjiao's account book held high in his hand, how could they not burst into tears? Seeing this, Fan Qinjiao struck while the iron was hot and said, "This war on Huaishang requires 3 million taels of military pay. Now my Hua family's donation of more than 1.7 million taels is just a drop in the bucket. The country is in trouble, and everyone is responsible. If there is a difficulty, support from all directions may be enough to save the life of a soldier. With this donation, we will share the same difficulty with Huaishang." The dandies next to him were also moved to tears. Only. There are more than 1 million military pay left. Even if we sell these common people, it won't be enough, right? Ji-yo's shook his head, his deep eyes full of admiration, as Miss Hwajia said, the donations from the people are just a drop in the bucket. So what she wants this time is to have a good reputation as a teacher. Only when the name is justified can the fat sheep be slaughtered in a natural manner. On the carriage in the alley, Bailey Fengming smiled after hearing this. It's hard for him to guess just now how she would get the military pay. It turned out that she had come up with this idea. Through the car window, he stared at the proud figure, his still eyes trembling. If the Hua family was still there, why would it be her turn to show up like this? If the Hua family was still there, she would probably be able to live and feed as well as other girls of similar age. But the Hua family is gone after all. Bailey Fengming suddenly ordered Xiaoxian in a low voice, sneak into the crowd and incite donations. Since this is what Ayao wants, then he will definitely help her. Xiaoxian received the order and quickly walked into the crowd. While the people were still silent, he first shouted, "I will donate." The people who were already filled with excitement did not actually know who shouted these words. But this sentence represents all of them. Count me in. Although my monthly income is only 50 cents, I am willing to donate all my monthly income. There's also me, I'll donate 50 taels. For a time, there was an explosion in front of the Hwajia shop. Just as the donations from the common people were in full swing, the wealthy family members in the tea house were about to leave quietly. Ji-yo's glanced at the dudes around him. Several dandies raised their eyes and looked at the tea house, then shouted, "Hey, isn't this Mr. Ma? Hey! Mr. He family is also here, as well as Mr. Lu, Mr. Zhang, they are all here." The faces of the several big businessmen who were named immediately changed dramatically. Suddenly, an unknown premonition hit Tianling Gai. At the same time, everyone's eyes on the West Street were directed this way. Fan Qinjiao was very surprised when he looked at the Jiahao clan who were frozen on the spot, wishing to use escape skills to leave immediately, and smiled with joy. "How lucky I am to meet the Jiahao clan in the main city today, so I really want to say it's the daughters of my Hua family who are so lucky." As the saying goes, don't hit someone with a smiling face. The Jiahao clan members who were blocked looked at Fan Qinjiao's smiling face. They were obviously very angry, but not a single word comes out. Fan Qinjiao seemed to have thought of something again, and was even more ecstatic. Could it be that several Jiahao clan members had already calculated that my Hua family would take the lead in donating military salary, so they came here specifically to help? Smile couldn't stand these selfish villains the most. He immediately came over and pulled Fan Qinjiao's sleeve and said, "Even if the beggars on Temple Street can donate money, they won't throw away a penny. It's better to save some energy, sister." I think it was these people who manipulated the donated military materials back then. Not only did the meat taste good, but the rice was so wet that water could squeeze out of it. It was enough to make the soldiers suffer from diarrhea for more than a month. Fan Qinjiao complained, "Why is the second sister so ungrateful?" Smile. Is this kind of kindness still useful? Fan Qinjiao looked up at the Jiahao clan in the tea house again, and said with a serious face, "No matter who these Jiahao clan members are in the eyes of others, in my eyes, Fan Qinjiao, they are the master is the most prestigious and accomplished person in the main city, and he is also the founder of the business and trade in the main city. I think the masters are definitely not aware of what the second sister just said. How can I, with my great kindness and righteousness, just watch the soldiers suffer?" The Jiahao people in the tea house. "It sounds like you are scolding them no matter how you sound." But they just couldn't find any evidence. The group of dandies in front of the carriage were dumbfounded. Could it be that the people Miss Hwajia mentioned were not the same group they saw now? Ji-yo's, who could hardly hold back his smile, curled up his fingers and rubbed the tip of his nose. I really can't accept it. It is obviously a design to force the Jiahao clan to donate, but it can be said that it makes people feel happy. This flattery is so loud, I'm afraid those Jiahao clansmen won't be able to get away with it even if they want to get nothing. Looking at the few Jiahao people standing on the tea house, they were all sweating. Since this matter has already involved the imperial court, wouldn't they be making them uncomfortable if they didn't donate to the imperial court? Moreover, the young lady of the Hua family put her hat on their head again. If they really left in a hurry, their family might not be able to survive the night. Just by spitting out a mouthful of foam from the people in the main city, their mansions could be flooded with water. Miss Huajia is in serious condition, and we are here to donate. Since the youngest daughter of the Hua family can have this realization, naturally we can't just sit idly by and ignore it. When the country is in trouble, everyone is responsible. This is what we should do. The smiles on the faces of this group of Jiahao clan members were so bright that they wanted to vomit blood in their hearts. It's better now. Not only did they not like it because of the excitement, but they still had to pay for the flower shop out of their own pockets. But even though they hated Fan Qingjao in their hearts, they could only hold your head and admit defeat. With the eyes of the people on West Street witnessing it, these Heihao clan members took out various amounts of banknotes one after another. Fan Qingjao personally wrote down every donation to show respect, and even shouted out loud. The Jiahao clan who were still trying to make up for their money saw this and quickly took out a lot of money. It's true that they hate Fan Qingjao to death, but they need to be ashamed even more. Fan Qingjao seemed not to be able to see the resentful eyes of the Jiahao clan, but still greeted people with a smile. In fact, she had seen these Jiahao clan members when she took her sisters to the tea house just now. She is always welcome to see Huajia's jokes. As long as you have enough money, it will be fine. Such a shocking reversal simply shattered the outlook of those dudes. In just a few words, a large amount of banknotes were collected from these hard-earned Jiahao clan. Seriously. My Miss Qingjao is amazing. Looking at the dejected Jiahao clan again, the dandies in the main city shed tears of laughter. It's simply retributive. It was Do Caochen who was pinned to the ground by the common people and looked at the Jiahao clan who were being bloodlet, and finally gained some balance in his heart. It's just that he didn't know that the retribution waiting for him was still coming. This time, the three words Do Cao City can be regarded as being infamy in the main city for thousands of years. Not only did it offend the merchants in the main city, but it also triggered a collective crusade from the people. Mrs. Do, who was still at home and didn't know what had happened, heard a muffled sound coming from the door of the house. When she hurried over with people, she saw that the door of her house was about to be broken into pieces by the people. The pebbles rotted and the vegetable leaves were smashed. Mrs. Do didn't know what to do, so she saw Do Caochen being carried back after being beaten to death. As soon as she saw her master's head, which was as swollen as a steamed bun, Mrs. Do fainted without holding on. Soon, what Do Caochen did to the Hua family spread throughout the main city. Mrs. Do, who had just woken up not long ago, almost fainted again. Including all donations, the Huajia's shop auction this time exceeded one-third of the military pay. Fan Qingjao sent all the banknotes to Prince Zunshuo's mansion that night. When Prince Heshuo saw the banknotes, he was so excited that he burst into tears. He even entered the palace before the key was released and presented the banknotes in front of Emperor Yongchang. Compared to the excitement of Prince Heshuo, the old emperor's face was rather gloomy. He already knew what happened at the Huajia shop. He also knew clearly what Fan Qingjao said and what he did. Although Fan Qingjao was trying to win over the people for him, he was also putting pressure on him. Now people all over the city know that the Hua family uses silver to fill military pay. If he really kills all the men of the Hua family this time, he will probably instantly arouse the anger and dissatisfaction of the people. Fan Qingjao. Fan. Clear. Remote. She is really a hateful and powerful girl. Emperor Yongchang calmly backed away from Prince Heshuo and looked at Baitu beside him. Where are the seventh old man? When I returned to the emperor, I heard that the seventh prince and the fifth prince fought all the way to Fenji Palace. Fortunately, the queen separated them. I am afraid they are all listening to the queen's instructions at this moment. Call Lao Qi here quietly. Yes, your majesty. Under the dim candlelight, Emperor Yongchang's gloomy eyes were filled with murderous intent. Fan Qingjao did a really good job in this matter. If it were someone else, maybe he would really be lenient. But Huajia can't do it. Thinking of the men of the Hua family and the reputation and prestige of the Hua family in Ziliang, how could he not be afraid? This time he sent the men of the Hua family to Huaishang. To him, the men of the Hua family were nothing more than a pile of dead bodies. Originally he wanted to leave this matter to Lao Qi, so that he could not disgrace the vow he made to Hua Yaoding to never leave. But now it seems that he still needs his personal guidance to avoid falling into trouble. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 177. Chapter 177. The so-called war has just begun. The battle between Ziliang and Xianbei is about to begin, and the emperor has posted a notice telling Chujun to go to Huaishang tomorrow. In the middle of the imperial list, the names of all the boys of the Hua family were written, indicating that the emperor was determined to achieve a complete victory in his trip to Huaishang. When the people learned that the Hua family would also participate in the war, the whole city was in a state of excitement. For a time, in tea houses and restaurants, people could be heard talking about the Hua family's battle with Xianbei. An inconspicuous carriage was parked on a remote hillside outside the main city. Hua Yaoding, who had not returned for a long time, was sitting in the carriage, listening to Ning Tian's report. Beside Yu Hua Yaoding, Tao Yuxian, who had his eyes closed and turned the beads in his hands, opened his eyes worriedly when he heard this. Is it necessary to send someone to tell Xiao Qingjao to find a way to stop the rumors in the city? This time the emperor has ordered all the Hua family men far away in the border areas to go to Huaishang. Although the holy will is unpredictable, how can the Hua family be so high profile at this time? Hua Yaoding thought carefully about the restatement and then shook his head. No need, I'm afraid that little Qingjao kid already has an idea in his mind. In this case, we don't need to cause her any trouble, let's go. The fight between the Hua family and Xianbei is indeed not a secret, but the men of the Hua family never show off their achievements, so no one can clearly know what happened on the battlefield. But in the words that Ning Tian repeated just now, he clearly described all the experiences of the previous battles. Obviously, this was a rumor that Xiao Qingjao deliberately spread in the main city. Although he can't guess Xiao Qingjiao's intentions now, he believes in Xiao Qingjiao's opinion and stability. Tao Yuxian looked at the old man beside him and wanted to say something, but in the end he closed his eyes again. Outside the carriage, Ning Tian and Lanja looked reluctantly in the direction of the main city, wishing they could return to the young lady right now. But they know better that if they don't have enough time now, even if they return to the lady, they will just be useless. And they should no longer be treated as waste. In the main city, when the ministers heard the people talking about the Hua family, some would nod in agreement and praise the Hua family's bravery back then, some would smile disdainfully and ridicule the Hua family's current downturn, and some ministers would he was silent, as if he didn't hear anything at all. But these ministers with thousands of expressions did not know that their every move had long been secretly recorded. That night, Fan Zhao came to Fan Qingjao with a thick booklet. Master, everything you asked has been done. Fan Qingjao took the brochure and read it carefully. He was not happy about the ministers who praised the Hua family, nor was he disgusted with the ministers who insulted the Hua family. After a moment, she picked out a few names and pointed them out to Fan Zhao. Fan Zhao was stunned when he looked at the names of those people. Master, these people have no expression at all. He thought that the master should look for those ministers who were aggrieved by the Hua family. Fan Kinjao's gentle voice could not hide his sarcasm about the tense situation. My grandfather is a low-key and reserved person. What he hates most is being bragging. Those who are now pursuing the Hua family just want to take advantage of the Hua family's momentum. It's just to win favor. Only a truly loyal person will hide his inner ups and downs quietly. In her last life, what she saw most were the kind of villains who cling to power. Fan Kinjao stood up and picked out a few brands with strange patterns from the box that her grandfather had given her before leaving. However, she did not give them to Fan Zhao. Instead, she looked at Fan Zhao and said, "Find someone you trust the most. Come over." Fan Zhao was stunned for a moment, but he quickly found a brother who had been with him the longest and entered the door. Fan Kinjao then handed over the sign in his hand. "Fan Zhao will give you the names of several people in a while. You can take the military talisman used by my grandfather and place it quietly in front of them. Don't make it public. Just leave. In the past, my grandfather used to make good use of flower charms when he led his troops in wars. It was a way of conveying messages that only the Hua family understood." This time she placed the flower talisman in front of them, which only magnified the injustice and nostalgia they felt for the Hua family. The more they were reluctant and nostalgic for the Hua family, the more the uncles suffered on the court. Phew. The battlefield is no joke. Maybe just a look is enough to save a life. Waiting for the person holding the flower charm to leave, Fan Kinjao turned around and walked to the desk to write a letter. After a moment, she handed over the envelope number, walked around the desk and walked solemnly in front of Fan Zhao. "Fan Zhao, I want you to leave for Huaishang tonight. Remember not to waste any time on the way. After you find my uncles, give this letter to your uncles. The situation is urgent and I can't trust anyone but you." Fan Zhao knelt down and took the letter without any hesitation. He just put the letter in his pocket and then said, "If I can do something for the master, Fan Zhao will do it to his death." However, Fan Zhao doesn't know the elders of the Hua family, so he asked the master to find someone expressly. Fan Kinjao's heart tightened. If possible, she would rather follow Fan Zhao to Huaishang in person. But no, now she cannot leave the main city even half a step. According to that person's suspicion, I am afraid that on the day when the army to Huaishang sets off, the western suburbs mansion will be surrounded by that person's spies. If she leaves without authorization, these people in the Hua family will probably. "Third sister, I'm going," a clear voice suddenly sounded at the door. Fan Kinjao turned around in surprise and saw Tianyu lifting the curtain and walking in. Under Fan Kinjao's gaze, Tianyu knelt on the ground and said, "Third sister, let me go. Although my disguise skills are not as good as yours, I am still the best among the other sisters. Besides, no matter where I stand, you can recognize your father and uncle at a glance." In the past few days, Tianyu had already noticed that the third sister was hiding something. But she never expected that the third sister would shoulder so much to make everyone feel at ease. Thinking like this, Tianyu's tears flowed out. "Third sister, you said that since we are the daughters of the Hua family, we must shoulder everything that others cannot. I am not afraid, let alone cowardly. Grandpa also said that our Hua family never produces waste, whether it is a man or a woman. So, third sister, just let me go, I promise I will come back safely, you believe me?" Tianyu knelt on the ground, his eager little face covered with tears. Fan Kinjao's mind was spinning 1,000 times in an instant, and his throat was severely clogged. Daughters from other families are still innocent at this age, but looking at the daughters of her Hua family, they have to grow up quickly and are responsible for the rise and fall of the family. Thinking about how others have weathered the storm, and then looking at my sister who is not even afraid of death. How could Fan Kinjao not feel distressed? But this is her sister, the daughter of the Hua family. Suppressing the pain in his heart, Fan Kinjao held Tianyu's hand tightly and pulled her up, carefully telling her, "You will go to Huaishang with Fan Zhao tonight, and I will change your disguise into men's clothing in advance. You must remember not to do anything arbitrarily, and you must obey Fan Zhao's orders. This is not a warning, but an order that can save her sister's life." Tianyu nodded with tears in his eyes. "Don't worry, third sister. I just asked third sister to take good care of my mother." Fan Qinjiao squeezed Tianyu's hand a little tighter. She certainly wouldn't let third aunt see anything wrong. She will confess to her third sister-in-law. End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 178. Chapter 178. We share the ups and downs, the honor and disgrace. Fan Qinjiao thought that the road this time was difficult, so he told Tianyu to go into battle lightly. Tianyu gritted his teeth. After the innocence of a few months ago faded away, what emerged was the calmness and courage that only a daughter of the Hua family could possess. "Don't worry, third sister, I'll pack my bags right away." With the intention of moving forward bravely, Tianyu calmly walked out of Fan Qinjiao's yard. "Looking up at the endless darkness above my head, I felt so small." She did observe the difference in the third sister in advance, but she did not expect that the matter would be so serious. Sweat continued to break out from her body and wet her clothes. It was at this moment that she began to feel frightened. Others were so happy when they heard that their father and uncles could set foot on the battlefield again, but only the third sister could see through the mystery. If the third sister had not been alert this time, I am afraid that this would have been a withered flower. What will follow will be an even greater storm. After Fan Qinjiao sent Tianyu away, he didn't delay much. He got up and went to the south courtyard where Tianyu lived. In the house, the third daughter-in-law Pihan, who had not yet fallen asleep, saw Fan Qinjiao entering the door, so she quickly got up and came over to greet him. "Why are you here so late?" she said, trying to pull Fan Qinjiao to sit down. Fan Qinjiao took a step back and knelt on the ground. The third daughter-in-law Pihan was shocked. "Xiao Qinjiao, what are you doing?" Fan Qinjiao first kowtowed heavily to his third sister-in-law, then raised his cheeks, tensed his whole body, and explained the current situation of the Hua family. "If it were not forced by the situation, I would never let my fourth sister come forward. I am willing to take the risk of going to Huaishang no matter how much the third aunt scolds me. If the third aunt really doesn't want to, it's still too late to stop the fourth sister. She can hide something, but the matter is so important that she must not deceive." The reason why Fan Qinjiao came to plead guilty at this time was to leave a glimmer of hope for the third aunt. When something happens to the Hua family, everyone in the Hua family has the obligation to come forward. But in her last life, she saw with her own eyes the profound pain of death and death. Having personally experienced joys and sorrows, separation, life and death, and heart-wrenching pain, how could she be willing to let her relatives taste this again in this life? The third daughter-in-law Pihan looked at the little man kneeling in front of her and felt a buzzing in her ears, and her body was no longer in control. Her throat rolled, her eyes gradually turned red, and tears fell uncontrollably. Fan Qinjiao understood this clearly. "Third sister-in-law, don't worry, I will stop Tianyu right away." If possible, she didn't want anyone to know the cruel truth. But fortunately, the third aunt is very independent and will never make it public even if she knows about it. As for the person who can replace the heavenly decree, the only one is Xiao Qinjiao. The third daughter-in-law Pihan suddenly spoke up. She walked up to Fan Qinjiao and said solemnly with trembling lips, "Since that restless thing wants to leave, just let her go. Since her surname is Hua, she has this responsibility, but you must tell her that she must bring the news to her father and other uncles. If she can't do this little thing well, then she doesn't have to come back. It is natural that you would not give up." But the third daughter-in-law Pihan must be cruel. She does not have Xiao Qinjiao's wisdom and understanding of everything, but she also knows that what Xiao Qinjiao is doing now is to preserve this broken home. If one of her elders is holding her back at this time, how can she deserve Xiao Qinjiao's title of third aunt? Fan Qinjiao felt something in his heart and his eyes were red. Third auntie. Before Fan Qinjiao could continue, the third daughter-in-law Pihan said again, that girl Tianyu is quite clever. She has been raised by the Hua family for so many years. Now it's time to go out and have some experience. Xiao Qinjiao, don't worry, the mansion I will hide and take care of the other people inside, so you can just worry about doing other things. Fan Qinjiao nodded and held the third aunt's hand tightly again. In her previous life, she was selfish and decisive, and never felt the company of her family. Fortunately, in this life, she clung to what she had lost. It turns out that this is the so-called feeling of being at home. We share the ups and downs, the honors and the disgrace. It is late at night at midnight. Tianyu, who was carrying a small package, had already changed into men's clothes. Accompanied by Fan Zhao, the two men quietly opened the back door of the mansion. Fan Qinjiao put 3 tips bags into Tianyu's hands and warned carefully, don't panic when encountering something. Every time you open one of the tips bags, you will be able to avoid danger. Tianyu nodded, forcing the tears from his eyes back into his stomach. The daughter of the Hua family is different from other delicate girls. She has been pulled by her grandfather to ride a horse and shoot arrows since she was a child. Although Tianyu is a bit unfamiliar, she is still safe on the horseback. Fan Zhao saw that the fourth lady was sitting firmly, and he was about to get on his horse, but suddenly he noticed something strange. Hu, Fan Zhao instantly pulled out the long knife in his arms, murderous intent leaking out of his eyes. Lin Yi calmly settled in front of Fan Qinjiao, holding his fist and saying, I once had the honor to follow General Hua Lao to Huaishan to quell the chaos. His Highness reminded me that the journey to Huaishan this time is dangerous, and please ask Miss Qinjiao for permission. Please follow me and lead the way. Fan Qinjiao knew that his calculations and thoughts could not be hidden from Bailey Fengming. It's just that she didn't expect that he would have guessed everything so quickly. This will trouble the deputy young master of the East Palace. This trip to Huaishan is no longer a trivial matter. Having one more person accompanying him is an added guarantee for the heavenly decree. Lin Yi nodded and said nothing more. He went to the dark place to pull out his galloping horse. He turned over and galloped towards the city gate first. Seeing this, Tianyu no longer stopped, threw out his riding whip and followed closely. Fan Zhaozhen was about to get on his horse, but Fan Qinjiao held his sleeve. Master! Fan Qinjiao looked at Fan Zhao and clenched his fingers again. Fan Zhao, we are going to Luyi this time. A gust of cool wind blew by, completely hiding Fan Qinjiao's subsequent words in the coolness. Fan Zhao, who could hear every word clearly, opened his eyes in disbelief. Master, you are rebelling. Are you sure you want to do this? Fan Qinjiao nodded expressionlessly. As long as the uncles can escape this disaster safely, let alone rebellion, it doesn't matter if it's against the will of heaven. Fan Zhao saw that Fan Qinjiao's cold eyes were full of determination, so he stopped talking and got on his horse. The third daughter-in-law, Pihan, was secretly standing at the back door, covering her lips, crying so hard that her whole body was shaking. Fan Qinjiao walked over silently and gently held the third aunt's hand. At this moment, 2 drunk people passed by the door. Have you heard? Then the Dou family is done this time. Not only were they chased and scolded by the people in the capital, but they were also expelled from the Merchant Alliance. I heard that the Dou family sold off all the shops in the capital. How could I not know such big news? I also knew that it was because the master of the Dou family had an evil spirit. After returning to the house, he kept shouting that he had seen a ghost. The whole Dou family was so frightened that they couldn't help but they moved out of the main city overnight. Whoever you mess with is the Hua family, but who would have thought that the Hua family, which seems to have been broken into pieces, can actually be so capable that even the dandies in the capital are giving enough face. The third daughter-in-law Pihan was shocked when she heard this. If something happens to the Do family, wouldn't my sister-in-law have to follow her in the future? After all, they are all former sisters-in-law, and no one wants to see Ling Wei homeless. Fan Qinjiao, however, looked calm and said, "It's getting late. I'll send my third aunt back to rest." When Mrs. Do was able to take the initiative to step on the Hua family when the Hua family was hit hard, how could it be possible without Ling Wei's instigation? You have to walk your own path, and every step must be counted. Winning kings and losing bandits, how can there be so many pitiful people? It's just that Fan Qinjiao didn't expect that the medicine prepared by Tianyu was quite effective, but he only applied it a little on himself, and deliberately rubbed it on Dokaochan when he was arguing with him, so that it could make Dokao the city is full of nightmares. It seems that her sisters are really growing up rapidly. The gloomy weather gradually enveloped the main city, and the sound of thunder was deafening. It was an uneventful night, and those lieutenants who had followed Hua Yaoding and served to the death were even more unintentional to sleep. At the moment, they are sitting in their respective mansions, holding the flower talisman in their hands that only those who have been appointed to the Hua family can understand its meaning. They are excited and extremely nervous. They never expected that after half a year, they would still be able to see the Hua family's flower charm again. Loyalty, filial piety, benevolence, righteous. 4 simple words awakened the loyalty and perseverance in their hearts. Thinking of all the deeds in the main city in the past few days regarding the Hua family's attack on Xianbei. Thinking of the fact that the daughters of the Hua family even rented out shops in order to supplement their military pay. The lieutenants all tacitly grasped the flower charms in their hands. The Hua family hasn't fallen yet. There is no way the Hua family will fall. In this battle, they must do their best to keep the flower boy. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 179. Chapter 179. Where does the face come from? On the 27th day of the 12th lunar month, the army heading to Huaishang set out in the main city. The notice announcing the Hua family's men's participation in the war was also posted on the imperial list, and the people in the main city were agitated for a while. As long as the Huajia men are around, it is easy to defeat Xianbei. The mansion in the western suburbs was also filled with joy. Hua Yuelian burst into tears immediately after hearing the news. As long as her brothers win, they will be able to come back, and she can finally give them an explanation. The second daughter-in-law, Chenyu, and the fourth daughter-in-law, Yafu, began to discuss how to prepare delicious treats for the guests when they came back. Xiao Yan and Wen also talked and laughed, looking forward to the news of victory coming soon. The third daughter-in-law, Pihan, was sitting among the daughters-in-law, but her heart was filled with indescribable bitterness. If Xiao Qinjiao hadn't told the truth, I'm afraid she would have been addicted to the illusion of joy and couldn't extricate herself. The third daughter-in-law Pihan turned her eyes towards Fan Qinjiao, who was sitting beside him and smiling with everyone, and felt terrible pain in his heart. Knowing the truth but not being able to tell it truthfully, how painful it must be for Xiao Qinjiao. Why didn't you see Tianyu? Hua Yuelian glanced around the room before looking at her third daughter-in-law, Pihan. The third daughter-in-law, Pihan, forced a smile and said, "There are some trivial things at my parents' house. I just asked Tianyu to go back and take a look. I guess I will stay there for a few days." Hearing this, Hua Yuelian clenched the hand of the third daughter-in-law Pihan. "This is just right. When Tianyu comes back, my brother will probably come back, and I'm afraid that girl will be very happy if she finds out." The third daughter-in-law, Pihan, forced a smile and said, "That's natural. I really hope to be reunited soon, so that the Hua family will be back to the past. Hua Yuelian squeezed the hand of her third daughter-in-law Pihan for a while, and more tears gathered in her eyes. Back then, she left the Hua family arbitrarily, and when she didn't want to come back, she had to accompany the Hua family to suffer this disaster. No one knows that she now has the urge to regret that time. The more she regretted, the more she wanted everyone to be reunited. When Nanny Sue entered the door, there was a hint of worry in her expression. It's just that there was a lot of commotion at the door of the house, and she couldn't allow her to think too much. She could only say truthfully, the eldest aunt has come back with the eldest lady, and now they are both kneeling at the door of the house. In an instant, the main hall, which was still filled with laughter, became a little colder without warning. No one in the house really had a good impression of the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei and Xin Ying. Especially when I think about the fact that the men of the Hua family have just been sent out of the city, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei is thinking of divorce, and the third daughter-in-law Pihan, who has a bad temper, can even vomit in disgust. But amidst the silence of the crowd, Hua Yuelian stood up first. I'll go out and have a look. As far as she is concerned, her eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei is still her former sister-in-law, and she cannot ignore her even for the sake of her eldest brother. Seeing Hua Yuelian leave the room, everyone's eyes fell on Fan Qinjiao. Fan Qinjiao lowered his eyes slightly and said, "Excuse me, my aunts, please go out and have a look. No matter what the people outside say, I have invited these aunts to stabilize my mother first, and other matters will be done later. It's not too late to discuss it later." The daughters-in-law of the Hua family immediately understood what Xiao Qinjiao meant. The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei was probably here with Xinying in mind. "Don't worry, Xiao Qinjiao, we know how to do it." The daughters-in-law nodded defensively, got up and walked out. Mother Su stood aside and said worriedly, "Aren't you going to go out and have a look, little lady?" Fan Qinjiao shook his head. Now everyone in the main city knows that she is the head of the Hua family, so no matter what ideas the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei and Xinying want to make, as long as she is not present, no one will dare to be their boss. The entrance to the mansion in the western suburbs was already surrounded by people watching the excitement on 3 levels outside and on 3 levels. As soon as Hua Yuelian went out, she heard the loud banging sound of her eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei, who was holding Xinying's hand and kowtowing. As soon as she saw Hua Yuelian, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei burst into tears first and shouted heartbreakingly, "Yulian, I know everything is my fault. I shouldn't have listened to my parents. I haven't shown up since I went back, but I also have my own difficulties. Since ancient times, my parents' orders cannot be fulfilled, and I can't do anything about it." Seeing Hua Yuelian standing on the steps of the western suburbs mansion, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei and Xinying knelt all the way up the steps, hugging Hua Yuelian's legs and crying hard. "Yulian, I know that you blame your sister-in-law and even hate her. My sister-in-law knows that what happened in the past was her fault. She should not have used the money in the house to help her parents' family. But you also know that my father is not your biological child. If I don't take it, how will my mother live with her money back?" Hua Yuelian looked down at her eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei and sighed helplessly. What happened in the past is in the past, so why bother? Hearing this, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei pushed Xinying in front of Hua Yuelian. Hua Yuelian's heart ached when she saw Xinying's wrinkled clothes and dusty face. She suddenly thought of the sadness she felt when Yu Yaer followed her and left the Fan mansion to seek life outside. Xinying is probably not much bigger than Crescent Moon. The eldest daughter-in-law, Ling Wei, caught the pain in Hua Yuelian's eyes and cried out, "Now my parents have left the main city. Xinying and I sneaked back overnight. Yulian, you see that I used to for the sake of giving birth to a child for your brother, you just want me to come back, right? Even if you don't pity me, you pity Xinying, but Xinying is your eldest brother's biological daughter, she is innocent." The people around looked at this scene, and the sarcasm and curses they once had on their eldest daughter-in-law, Ling Wei, stopped. Thinking about it carefully, the eldest daughter-in-law of the Hua family is also a hard-working person. Her father even died on the battlefield trying to block General Hua's arrow. How is there ever a time when people don't make mistakes? Besides, the child is still young, and no one can just watch the child suffer. When the daughters-in-law of the Hua family walked to the door, they saw Hua Yuelian bending down to help the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei up, and also pulling Xinying beside her. "Sister-in-law, please don't say those things that are foreign to you. We are a family after all. I'm afraid my eldest brother will be happy if you come back. I even heard Yu Yaer say that Fen Ning will be back soon, so your family will be reunited. Our Hua family will be happy from the bottom of her heart." Hua Yuelian naturally hopes to reunite her family. "I still remember when I was little, my eldest brother loved her the most and would let her do anything. How could she have the heart to shut out her eldest brother's wife and daughter now?" The other daughters-in-law were very worried when they heard this. Yulian has only been back with Xiao Qinjiao for a long time, but they have lived with their eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei for more than 10 years. Even more so because she is the eldest daughter-in-law, she wants to trample them into the dust. Now the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei, let alone crying, would not be able to forgive her hatred even if she died in front of them. Where does he have the nerve to say such hypocritical words now? How could the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei, who was standing at the door of the Huajia mansion, not feel the resistance of the sisters-in-law at the door? But even resisting is useless. In the past, they did not have any say in this family, and now it is not their turn to make the decision. Thinking of this, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei dragged Xinying and cried pitifully, "I knew you could forgive me, Yulian. Don't worry, I will advance and retreat together with the Hua family in the future. I will not contact my parents again." Such words moved the faces of the people watching the excitement at the entrance of Huajia. The eldest daughter-in-law of the Hua family has even abandoned her natal family. It would be too much for the Hua family to stop her. The second gate of the mansion. The second daughter-in-law, Chenyu, is already frightened when she thinks that her sister-in-law is coming back again. "What should I do?" The third daughter-in-law Pihan warned, "I'm going to find Xiao Qinjiao. You too, be careful and don't let them in." After saying that, he turned around and walked back with his skirt in hand. In the main hall, Fan Qinjiao played with the teacup in his hand while listening to the description of his third daughter-in-law Pihan. After a long while, she gave the order, "Ning Han, ask butler Cheng to withdraw 100 taels of silver and deliver it to my eldest aunt in person." The third daughter-in-law Pihan was stunned and said, "Xiao Qinjiao, all the money in our house is earned carefully. How could you just take advantage of that ruthless mother and daughter?" Fan Qinjiao just smiled and said, "Don't worry, third aunt, the money has been given, but it will definitely not be taken advantage of." End of this chapter. The legitimate daughter of the prosperous medical fragrance will not marry. Author, Jinchi. Chapter 180. Chapter 180. The person standing behind. The people at the entrance of the mansion in the western suburbs were still watching. Hua Yuelian looked at her eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei, who was crying and convulsing, and her heart felt uncomfortable. Where could she see the flickering hatred and impatience in the eyes of her eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei? The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei cried so much that she moved heaven and earth, but in her heart she had already scolded Hua Yulian all over. Sure enough, a person who can produce a little like Fan Qinjiao is not only dull but also extremely stupid. She has made it so obvious and admitted her mistake, so why not let her take Xinying back to Hua's house? Don't forget that she is the eldest daughter-in-law of the Hua family. Those who deserve to be kicked out of Fan Mansion and relegated to the hall. Auntie Ninggan's voice suddenly sounded in her ears. The eldest daughter-in-law, Ling Wei, was startled. When she looked up, she once again put on a look that had changed her past. Isn't this Miss Ninggan, but Xiao Qinjiao wants to see me." No matter how stupid Ningan was, she almost couldn't help but slap her in the face after hearing these words. Knowing that she was serving the young lady, he still called her girl repeatedly, and even asked her young lady in such a humble manner. Wasn't this an obvious attempt to push her young lady to the forefront? As expected, the people standing at the foot of the steps had traces of angry expressions on their faces. Even if Fan Kinjao is really the head of the Hua family now, he is still just a junior of the Hua family according to his age. How can a girl who doesn't even have hairpins act so powerful in front of her aunt? When the daughters-in-law at the second door saw this, they all hoped that Hua Yuelian could spot Niduan. It's a pity that Hua Yulian, who wanted to reunite the Hua family, was simply indifferent. Seeing this, the fourth daughter-in-law Yafu sighed. Yulian just wanted to be reunited too much, and she always felt that she owed the Hua family too much. Instead, she let her sister-in-law pinch her to death. The third daughter-in-law Pihan said, even if she can control Yulian's soft-heartedness, Xiao Qinjiao will not tolerate her. Just as the daughters-in-law were talking, they saw Ningan take out a banknote from his arms at the door of the house. Auntie, Our Lady said that since you came back in a hurry, the house still hasn't been able to clean up the yard for you. You can take the money and find a place to stay for the time being. Our Lady will send someone tomorrow. Bring you back. As soon as the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei heard that she was not allowed to go back, she felt uncomfortable. Just looking at the number of banknotes in Ningan's hand, she felt that it was worth waiting not just 1 day, but even 10 days. That's 100 taels, which is enough for her to carry her charm for a long time. I know that Xinying and I have caused trouble for little Qinjiao. So we, mother and daughter, just need to find a place to stay first. When we come back tomorrow, we won't bother little Qinjiao to pick us up. Ling Wei, the eldest daughter-in-law, with that said, he accepted the banknote in Ningan's hand. Seeing that the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei left with Xinying, all the people gathered in front of the mansion in the western suburbs dispersed. Hua Yuelian felt very uncomfortable, and she didn't even eat dinner. When Fan Kinjao came in, he saw Hua Yuelian holding a shabby little doll and playing with it in her hands. Seeing Fan Kinjao come in, Hua Yuelian stroked the doll in her hand and said softly, "Your uncle bought this for me with the first salary he earned, but he left her behind in a hurry. The Hua family, I didn't expect it to be preserved by Nanny Su all these years." The debt she owed to the Hua family was like a huge stone weighing on Hua Yulian's heart, making her never be able to calm down. Fan Kinjao sat calmly by the bed, just listening to his mother say again, "Yu Yater, after this victory, your uncles will come back. Do you really have the heart to look at other uncles? Their wives and daughters are reunited, but your eldest uncle and your eldest brother have no wife, mother, daughter, or sister. The 100 taels, didn't she know that it was Yu Yater's excuse for keeping her sister-in-law out? She even knew how Sun Che could have brought someone to deliver the divorce letter if Yu Yater hadn't paid attention to him. If the Do family really doesn't make any noise, that's it, she can pretend to be deaf and dumb. But now the elder sister-in-law has brought her eldest brother's children to the door to beg for help, how can she not be moved?" Fan Kinjao said truthfully, "Yu Yater doesn't dare, so Yu Yater really wants to bring my aunt and Xinying back." Hua Yuelian tensed up and couldn't believe it. "Are you telling the truth?" Fan Kinjao just smiled, held her mother's hand and said, "When has Yu Yater ever deceived your mother?" Hua Yulian stared closely into her daughter's eyes, trying to see something in them, but she couldn't see anything. Mama Su pushed open the door and came in, holding a bowl of red date and lotus seed porridge in her hand. "Miss, you have to drink it while it's hot. This is what the young lady personally ordered to cook for you." Fan Kinjao took the bowl and gently scooped up a spoonful. After blowing it to cool down, he brought it to his mother's mouth. "Even if you don't believe me, you still have to believe your own eyes. All you need to do tonight is to treat your mother well, get some sleep. My aunt and Xinying will definitely return to the house tomorrow." Hua Yuelian looked at the porridge in front of her, Tears streaming down her face, Mother naturally believed in you yatter. It was my mistake. Mother should not have doubted you yatter. Mammy Sue looked at the mother and daughter who finally talked the matter out, and wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. Fan Kinjao didn't get up and leave the house until he coaxed his mother to sleep. In the yard, Ninghan has been waiting for a long time. Fan Kinjao asked after leaving the courtyard, "How did the investigation by Fan Zhao's people go?" Ninghan said softly, "We have found the Tianzihao room in Hongfu building." Fan Kinjao nodded and walked directly towards the door of the house. Outside the door, the people below Fan Zhao were standing by the carriage waiting. When they saw Fan Kinjao, they quickly opened the door. Fan Kinjao got on the carriage and looked at the extinguished candles in her mother's yard, her eyes darkening as well. I have to say that what the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei said today really broke her mother's heart, but the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei thought about things too naively. She really couldn't make her mother sad, so she blocked her mother's sister-in-law, her uncle's wife, and her brother's mother from the door. But the threshold of the Hua family is not so easy to cross. At the time of Su, Hongfu Tower, located in the center of the main city, was still full of guests. Hongfu Tower is the largest restaurant and inn in the main city. The people who come here to stay are all well-known people in the main city. At this time, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei and Zinying were sitting on the second floor eating and drinking. The two of them were already piled high with delicacies from the mountains and seas, but the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei was still desperately asking for the food. Seeing this, Zinying said in a low voice, "Mom, please stop it. That little Fan Kinjao is obviously using money to prevent us from going back. I don't even have an appetite for dragon meat from the sky." The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei ordered a dozen more dishes before sending the waiter away. Waiting until the waiter left, she pulled Zinying to her side and whispered, "You are really not smart when you say you are stupid. Didn't you listen to what the master said yesterday? As long as we act according to his instructions, the Hua family will definitely let us go back." Yesterday, she left the main city in a carriage with her parents. Unexpectedly, the carriage was stopped just 100 meters out of the city. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei would never have thought that she would be associated with such a person in this life. The most important thing is that that person not only gave her parents enough money to support them in their old age, but also gave her ideas to return to the Hua family. Thinking about that person's ability and identity, the eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei said again, "With that person standing behind us, we still worry about not being able to go back to Hua's house. Just settle down and do your own thing, and wait until we return to Hua's house. How cool we were in Hua's house before, we will be just like before in the future." But that Fan Kinjao. Zinying felt jealous and itchy when she thought of Fan Kinjao. The eldest daughter-in-law Ling Wei said with hatred, "As long as you hold your aunt in check, why are you afraid of Fan Kinjao's little hooves? From now on, that little bastard's hoof will only make us money. You, if you have Fan Kinjao, just half as smart." Zinying snorted, "I don't want to become a bitch." After saying that, he called the waiter over again and continued ordering. End of this chapter.